I was a little bit surprised when people wanted me to talk about the Endgame, because usually people don't want to hear about the Endgame. But so that's an extra lecture now, right? As I promised.
Yep.
Yeah. So what is the Endgame? I mean, I'm here to talk about the Endgame. It's hard, but what is it? Not how is it? When you study the Endgame, what are you studying? Somebody tell me?
Well, I think it's the time after the groups are alive.
Time after the groups are alive. Okay, so we are talking. You are talking about the end game stage of the game, right?
Yeah.
There's the opening stage. We spread some stones around the board, right? There's the middle game where groups fight each other, become stronger or weaker. And once every single group, once we know what's going on with the groups, we know this group is dead, this group is alive, alive, dead, dead, dead. There's no maybes. Then we have the end game. That's the end game stage of the game, right? So what happens in the end game stage? How do you choose your moves?
Center.
Center, okay, that's a good one. But also in the opening and middle game, you like center, right?
Counting the value.
Counting the value, right? In the opening game, you play a star point. How many points is this?
13.
Where is the 13 points? Can you show me?
If black passed, then it should be combing to black instead of to white. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Two codes.
So there's the theory, which should be correct, that it should be twice the value of Komi, right? And Komi is 6.5, so it's 13. We can do the kind of analysis that one player passes and how many points does it give. Komi is 6.5 points for white, but it's black to play. If black passes, white needs to give 13 points to reverse the situation, right? So the black Komi is 6.5 points. But that's theory, right? We cannot actually say, okay, how many points is this? You cannot say, right? Even in the middle game, we have groups somewhere around. It could be something like this here. It might be some kind of fighting scenario on the right side. And the black group is not completely strong. Black wants to defend it, right? Black plays this kind of move. How many points is this? We still cannot say, right? So in the opening game, in the middle game, we usually pick the moves by the functionality. We want to have a stone in this area, or I want to defend this group, or I want to move this group out. We are not counting points. We're talking in the strategic terms, right? But usually when the game nears the end, more or less we have positions like this one. Now please forget the surroundings. All the rest of the game is played already. There's some stones around there. And just this here. How many points is this move? Now we can count it, right?
Yeah.
So how many points is it?
Right.
Okay, so you say move around here is 1 point. Okay. Then let me make a few more. Okay, this was 1 point. How many points is this?
2 points.
This?
2. 1
One
half
point.
if we're comparing them like this.
So
we
you
could
mean,
count the
these
first
are-
one as, if we're counting points per gote, then the top one is a half because it takes 2 gotes to swing for 1 point. The second one is worth 1 because it takes 2 gotes to swing for 2 points. And then the one below, if black plays, black has 2 points. If white plays, black has half a point, so it's a swing of 1.5.
Did everybody get that? So now it gets complicated, right? Because now, finally we can see the end of the game. We can see there might be a point here, there might be 2 points here, there could be 2 points here, there could be 1 point here. Maybe white plays here and black does something else. There might be 0. We don't know finally, right? But when it gets suitably close to the end, we are able to give numerical values to the moves. And that is part of what the endgame is about. So instead of choosing moves like, I need to play here or I'm dead, or I need to play here or I'll get under attack, it's more like 1, 2, 3. Okay, I want 3 points because it's the biggest. You play the 3-point move, the other player plays a 2-point move, you play the 1-point move. Simple, right? So it's, to some degree, it's about numbers. And should I go to Mie counting? Okay, so there are a few different theories on how you can count the points. Like, some people said this is a 1-point move, and Andrew said it's a half-point move. And they're both correct, but they're using different systems. The point is that when we compare different moves, we use the same system for counting. If this is called a 1-point move, and this is called a half-point move, it doesn't make sense, does it? No. They must be the same. So we pick one system and we stick to it. And it used to be the more common system that everybody called this a 1-point move, and I think that's not very good. Because the reason is that when you think about this position, what could happen finally is white plays here, white uses one move turn, and black has 0 points, right? That's easy. Or it could be that black spends one move turn, one stone, to get 1 point. So it seems to me that we should assume that black has more points in this area than white. We don't know if it's 0 or it's 1. It's somewhere between, but it's positive, right? It's not like this is 0. So when black plays this 1-point move and it becomes 1 point, when he was supposed to have something around here, it feels weird to me, right? So there's quite the easy way to define the number system. Let's forget this. How many points does black have?
1.
Does everybody agree?
Yeah.
This is kind of simple, because when we play Go, you get 1 move, the opponent gets 1 move, you get 1 move, the opponent gets 1 move. You never get 2 in a row. So if we have this particular situation, if it's black's turn, black takes 1, white takes the other. 1 point, right? Simple. Okay? If it was white's turn first, white plays a move, black plays the other. 1 point. No matter who goes first, black has exactly 1 point. No talking. So if we assume that there is there's a big number of endgame moves left, how many points should black expect here? Half point, right? Because if there were 2 shapes like this, it's exactly 1 point, right? So if there's 1 shape, it's 1 divided by 2, half. And this way of counting is particularly good because if we get that this move is half a point, okay, black plays a half-point move, now black has 1 point. Black has half a point, black has 0 points. Now we know exactly the score on the board. So we can estimate black has half point here, black has 1 point there, 2 points there. We know exactly the expected score, and it gives us a precise number for the final score. We can estimate what's going to happen. If we call this a 1-point move, then at the end of the game you might get a different result. You counted something, you counted this as 0 black points, black played a 1-point move, and then the result is finally 1 point off from what you get. That could happen. This way is absolute, which is why it's called absolute counting, half a point. And that's also what's the system that I'm using in my book. But let's get back to the earlier. Okay, we defined this one as half a point. How many points is this? How many points is this? Do we need to know the numbers? I mean, if you want to play correctly, do you need to know this is half point? Do you need to call this, it's actually 1 point? And this here is actually 1 1/4. Do you need to know these numbers when you play the game?
For calculating your next move, yes.
Do you have the time?
I don't know.
Think about this tournament. We have 65 minutes, right? And you get 10 seconds per move.
5 seconds.
5 seconds per move, sorry. Okay. And now you need to use time to count 1 1/4 of a point, or you could really count 15/16 of a point. Is that useful? I mean, okay, so black's expected territory here is 1 1/4, I said. That makes this move worth 3/4. This move is worth 1 point. Just believe me here. I'm not going to explain too much. So if you pick this move over this move, how many points did you lose?
What's that?
1/4. You played a 3/4 move instead of 1 point move. And how much time do you need to figure that out if you know the theory? I think you need at least half a minute, maybe a minute. You have 65 minutes and some extra, maybe 100 minutes in total. Do you want to use one for this one? You lost 1/4 of a point. You don't want to do it, right? You died in the middle game, 1/4 of a point will not make you win the game. But if you know the theory behind this, once you play your game, you review it by yourself, then you can figure out, this was bigger, I should have played that one. So it's an extremely good tool for reviewing your games and knowing what you should have played. It's not something you do it during an actual game, but it's still useful. Well, that's the counting part, but let's see something more interesting. This I actually showed yesterday to some people as well, but it's good enough that I want to show it again. You don't need to be able to count the values of these moves. Well, black or white to play, it doesn't matter which move is bigger.
The lower one.
The top one.
Between the three stones.
Okay, hands up, just by gut feeling. Upper one, how many people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lower one, how many people? Okay, kind of even. Does somebody know the actual numbers? Okay, so the upper one, if black plays, black has 4 points, right? If white plays, black has 0 points, right? So black's average is 2 points right now. And if black plays here, the average of 2 becomes 4. So this is a 2-point move by the counting system that I'm using. This move is 1 11/12. So if you play this move, you're taking 1/12 of a point loss here. I know. Okay, here's the question. Yes, I can. Okay, if white plays, it's 0 points, right? If black plays, okay, black has 3 prisoners, and we have a new shape. Now, we don't know if black is going to play next or if white is going to play next. We need to assume the average. So, if black gets to play one more move, it's finally 5 points for black, right? If white gets to play one, it looks like this. And now again, we don't know if this is black or this is white, so it could be finally 0 for black, or it could be 1 1/3 of a point. The average of 0 and 1 1/3 of a point is 2/3 of a point for black here.
3 2/3 because of the 3 captures originally. What about the 3 captures originally?
Yeah, I'm trying to sum them up right now. So black has 2/3 of a point here in the white scenario, and +2 from here, right? So that's 2 2/3.
3 2/3 because you captured 3 stones. Oh, there's 1 black capture.
So there's yes, I summed this out, right? So that's 2 2/3. And here it was 5. So now what's the average of 5 and 2 2/3? I'm sorry, it's the first time I'm doing this without paper. 7.
3 5/6.
3 5/6. That's the correct amount, yes. And that 3 5/6 is the difference between black or white playing here. 3 5/6. So right now black expects the average of that, which is 1 11/12, right? And the move here is also 1 11/12. Well, through this kind of a mathematical calculation we can get it, but nobody actually wants to do it, right? But now you know, this move is smaller than this one. That's easy, right? I mean, you just need to remember capturing 3 in this kind of a recapture shape, or taking 2. You know this is a bit bigger. You don't need to know how much bigger it is, you need to know it's bigger, and you don't need to calculate anymore. But if you forget exactly how much it is, then it's quite useful to know how to recalculate it, I think. But you don't do it during a game, you do it between games, because you have limited time. Okay, now we get to the interesting part. Follow-up question. The rest of the board is played out. These are the final two moves left. Black to play. How should black play?
Capture the 3 snaps.
Why?
Because if white recaptures, then you've lost a point. Well, you've lost 1 stone, but then you capture the 2 above.
But white plays here, right?
No,
And then you kill
well,
it.
in that
Connect.
case, you connect,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got 2 more points. So you've made 5 points.
Yes.
And instead, if you capture the 1 above and white connect, and white connects instead,
You've got 4 points.
you get only 4 points.
Did everybody get that?
Mm-hmm.
Why does this happen?
Because white has to recapture. So
We're assuming an infinite amount of endgame moves.
We discussed this yesterday. The thing is that when we are getting close to the end of the game, things get a little bit special. Because if black plays this one, it is true, this is 1/12 of a point bigger than this one. The problem is that white also plays a big move, and now the game is over. White gets the last move. Getting the last move, it makes a profit. Whereas, if black plays the slightly inferior move, now there's 2 kind of big moves left. And black is sure to get 1 more move. Okay? In just this exchange, black lost 1/12 of a point. But now black still has this move, which is worth quite a bit as well. And now white doesn't have any good move, but white plays a 0-point move. Whereas this was worth more than 1/12 of a point. And that's how much of a profit black made here. So there are 2 completely different kinds of thinking. There's the abstract counting of which kind of a move is generally bigger. But in reality in a game, there's no, as you said, there's no infinite number of endgame moves. There's a limited amount of endgame moves. And you need to count ahead, okay, I play this, he plays that, I play this, he plays that, and what's going to happen finally. And that is what I would call the interesting part of the game, at the end game. So when I was planning this lecture with Jeff like 2 hours earlier, I was thinking like, how do I make everybody interested in the end game? What was your counter question? What will people say to me? I say end game is important. How was it? It was something like, but what does it matter? I get the opponent in the middle game. The game is over.
Yes.
I don't need to get 2 points more in the end game.
Or I messed up early and
And there was nothing more to do because I lost the game already.
Yes.
If I get even 7 points more in the end game, it's not going to help me. I lose by 30 points.
Right. This is the question most of my students ask me. Jeff, why you want to talk to me about endgame? Yeah.
Can somebody predict my answer?
Because there are games where that doesn't happen in the middle of the game.
That's also true, yeah, but in most, well, in some games you die, in some games the opponent dies, but quite often it doesn't happen, right?
Because the bingo is fun.
Yeah, that also, I think endgame is fun. I mean, the abstract counting and still figuring out what's actually going to happen and the difference there.
Many games are won in the end game as well, though.
Quite often, for example, when a pro plays, let's say 1 nanometer or 2 nanometer, it happens quite often that the pro gets some 30 points in the end game. I'm not exaggerating, 30 points. If you die in the middle game, but you play end game like a pro, you can still easily win. Even if you don't play like a pro, you can still get from 15 points back to the game, losing by 15 points. But actually the point that I would like to make is that endgame is not just about the endgame, or knowing how to play the endgame is not just about the endgame. It's kind of stupid because in the English language, when we call a move an endgame move, it sounds like it means a move in the endgame stage of the game, right? Endgame move. But the term came from Japanese, which is yose, which doesn't mean a move in the endgame stage of the move, endgame stage of the game. it means a move that just takes territory and doesn't affect groups. So for example, let's take an alpha goes again. Okay. Have you seen this before?
Yeah.
Have you seen this before?
Yeah.
Is this usually black or white, by the way?
Black. I think.
And have you seen this and this,
I don't know about that.
this and this, this, and maybe
Yeah.
this? So here we have a situation. It's like this, right? This right?
We know the last two.
The last two moves?
Yeah,
Okay.
last two move. Yeah.
Well, we can do it like that as well.
Definitely like that.
Mm-hmm. So I'll make it even simpler
Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
for our purposes. So in this shape, black cannot go out, first of all, because this white move is always center no matter what, right? Force those on turning. And now the black stones are dead. Everybody sees this, right? And if it was white's turn, white plays here, 4 stones are dead. If it was black's turn, black plays here, white here, black here, white here, black. White stones are dead, right?
If it's purely for points, instead of white playing the block on the outside, white doesn't play push to the 2-2.
Sorry?
What if white pushes to the 2-2 point in the corner? So then 5 liberties versus 4 is also killing the black stones.
Ah, no, yeah, that's also possible, yeah. Yes. Which is actually why black usually doesn't make this exchange anyway, but I'm making this simpler now.
Yeah.
So the point is that white can kill black, black can kill white, but usually this shape is left like this for the time being, even though it's about 8 stones. And this is an endgame move. Are you getting me here? This is an endgame move. Usually people play this on move 40 or move 50, very early in the game. It's an endgame move, because this white group is strong no matter what. This black group is also strong no matter what. So this area is just purely about points in the corner. It doesn't affect the rest of the groups on the board. So that was dangerous. So that's an endgame move that's played on move 40 or 50. And also for these kinds of moves, how many points is this, by the way? I bet in this kind of a situation, you like to be able to count it correctly. It's played early, it's clearly quite big, but it makes a difference if it's 15 points or 25 points, right? 25 points sounds super big, 15 points sound like you might want to take a corner instead. If you don't know how to count it correctly, you will play it at the wrong timing, and you will take a loss early in the game. Right? So, good endgame skills don't matter just for the endgame stage of the game, they matter to the opening. One more example, this is also modern. That's Tetsuchi. White to play. It's weird, right? We are looking at an opening Joseki, in an endgame lecture, and it's relevant.
Can white kill black?
You want to kill these? How do you kill them?
Actually, I don't think I can.
So, well, if we play the straightforward way, just to show the liberties. So, black has 4 liberties here, and white has 3 liberties in the corner. So the situation is that white cannot save these 2 stones. But still the question is, how should white play here? Sorry?
10.
Out of turn? Okay. That's right. And how should black play here? Hmm?
To attack the white stone.
218.
Yeah.
218. And then how should white play?
Sorry.
Jeff, how many mistakes did you see?
So 1.5.
It's 3 mistakes, right?
Huh?
There was 3 mistakes in this sequence, I think. And each of these mistakes was at least 2 points each. So altogether, the commie value was already lost. I mean, first the turn is wrong, then the attachment is wrong, and then the Atari is wrong. Right?
Well, how come the last honey is wrong?
Ah, no, the honey is not wrong, but the Atari was wrong.
Yeah, so
Yes.
1.5, right?
That's a mistake. That's also a mistake, and that's also a
Oh,
mistake.
okay. You count black as well, right?
Yeah, for both of them.
Right,
Yes,
right, yeah.
yes.
So yeah, then 12.
So,
yeah.
So
Because-
white made 2 mistakes and black made 1 mistake. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I see.
And the smallest mistake was 2 points.
Yeah, okay. Because that turn is controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Turn is a bit controversial, but we are just looking at the points now.
Yeah, okay.
Care to try again?
Atari inside.
Okay.
No, not the honey. As in throw in.
So we
Throw in.
Yeah, there.
Here.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then.
Because now black is alive, right? 2 eyes.
Yes.
Whose game was it? I think I was watching some top Europeans play this. Not. It wasn't a pro qualification. One of them. This shape happened. I was kibitzing.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember who it was, but it was some 5 or 6 player who played the Atari here, and I was like, oh, that lost 2 points.
Is it the poke?
Sorry?
The peep?
Peep is correct, yes. So let me show. What happened in the game was like this and like this, which is actually what we just had earlier. Like this and like this. And finally it becomes like this, right? And very late in the game it's white here and black here, right? So black has, let's call it 12 points. I count up to here. I don't care about these points, I'm not counting them. 12 points here with the captured stones. Is that correct? Okay. 12 black points. Okay. I start with this one. What does black play?
The same.
This end?
And you capture it.
Thank you. I think I won the game. Somebody else?
You have to connect.
You have to connect. Yes, correct. Then here. And black cannot afford to play anything here. Black has to attack these 2 stones, right? And then here, and then here, here, here. 2 points here for 10 points. 2 points difference, right? And I don't think this was even anything difficult. I mean, that's a Tesuji. It's an endgame Tesuji that has to be played in the early game. 2 points difference. I remember hearing a story about, well, it's a top Japanese pro, but he commented something like he lost 2 points in the opening game, he felt like resigning. That was on move 30 or something. But my main point here is that if you are making 2-point mistakes all the time in the opening game, and the opponent doesn't, they add up. In the middle game you are 20 points behind. You're not counting the points, but in the middle game you get the feeling that, wait a second, this is not going well. I don't know why, it's not going well. I need to try hard. I'll invade. Oh, I died, game over. So the origin is finally in the small points, right? It could be. Maybe that's not always the case, but it can very easily be the case, I think. Which, again, makes Endgame relevant in the opening game, in my opinion. Somebody want to argue?
Question.
Sure.
So, should one not play anywhere in that area at the moment because
It has to be played immediately, because
Immediate
otherwise
touches.
black will push here,
okay.
which is definitely center, because otherwise black plays the honey and now the white group is starting to look weak. And this is becoming black and more territory and so on, right? And even if you don't see the Tetsuji, this is also white center. So it's center for either player and lots of points. Sorry, where was I going? I was
So
going
you
somewhere
just
else.
do the turn as white?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No, you
play
play
the
the-
beat foot first.
Yeah,
Well-
if you know it.
Yeah, if you
If
play
you don't know it, you just play the turn.
Yes. And now the interesting thing here, the final interesting thing was that Jeff said this move is controversial. Can you explain what you mean with that?
Well,
We did this analysis just like
Yeah.
30 minutes ago.
so I
Okay.
think I have to come over. Sorry.
Yes?
Yeah, it's mainly because if white turn here,
Mhm.
yeah, let's say I play here for optimal for points. Sorry, I should say.
Yes, if white simply turns, the optimal for points is to play
This
here.
one. Yeah, and then let's say if we just play till the end.
Mhm.
Yeah, so here decent, honey. So like this, actually, yeah, white will gonna die, and actually white loses point. However, white this connection is selling. Yeah, compared to earlier, all those users, then white doesn't have this stone in the last picture.
Mhm.
Yeah, so and white having stone here can easily actually affect the people
Yes.
around here.
So, at the very simplest, it could be something like this here is black territory. Like this. And then if white has a stone here, white can jump all the way up on the second line, go deeper into the black territory. Whereas if white doesn't have this stone, he can just play the normal monkey jump, which is smaller. Or it could be it's a black group like this.
Yeah.
But because this white has this move in center, he could take the ice and kill black, possibly. So this kind of a first line move can make a huge difference, even in the middle game fighting, even though it relates to the end game. So it is possible that in some games, I think in this one there's nothing urgent on the left side, so most likely this way is correct. It's the best for points. But this move here is for influence on the outside, and if white can use the influence, then it can be that this way is better. And to me, this is actually what endgame is about. Because you need to judge different things. You need to judge, do you want to optimize points, or do you want to optimize influence? It's a very, very small detail, but it completely relates to the end game, and you need to do it in the early game. So, practically speaking, if somebody asks me, what is the end game about? Or if you study the end game, what are you studying? I say, you're studying the whole game, period. Because you are studying very, very small details and how to optimize them. To some people that's fun, to some people that's less fun, some people just like to fight around in a big way. But I think it's very interesting, and that's why I wrote the book, finally speaking. Questions? Was that too concise? Sure.
So there are, by the method you explained earlier, there are moves worth half and a quarter and an eighth,
Yeah.
and things with
Yes.
fraction. And then there are the co's, which
Mhm.
you helped me understand yesterday,
Mhm.
how they're worth a third.
Third of a point, yeah.
Are there any other bases? Can we get fifths or?
One moment. I'm quite sure there are technically 2s and 3s. I don't remember 5. I've seen something like 5 9ths, but that's just 3 to the power of 2, so it relates to the core shape. Core shape goes as a third of a point, and corridors go for half a point. So 5th would be interesting. And again, 11 12ths is also 2 by 3 by 2. Yes.
Yeah. So your denominator must be made of 2 digits.
Most likely. I guess some people might find the... Should I just put the Christmas tree up? Finally.
How did you work out that Ko's a third of a point?
Okay, I'll start with that one. It's not my idea, somebody did it first, but... If you just look at one Ko shape, then it's extremely difficult, I think, because you start analyzing this, black captures, white might play code red, white might go back, and it could continue infinitely, right? But there's a way to make it simpler if we just multiply the shape. So when we make this kind of an analysis, we want to define the value of something. We can make it simpler if we just create a position where both players play same value moves all the time. And black's capturing the Ko and white's connecting the Ko has to be the same value. It's on the same intersection. It makes the same difference in local position. So these moves are equal, right? And then also these moves have to be equal, right? How many points does black have? And that's basically it. So if there is exactly 3 Ko shapes like this, black expects exactly 1 point. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if 3 of them equal 1 point, then one of them equals 1/3 of a point for black. And then it's again easy. If it's 1/3 of a point for black right now, white plays 1 stone here, now it's 0, right? So the value of this move is 1/3 of a point. Mm-hmm. And black's move has to be worth the same as black's, also 1/3 of a point. QED. Do you still want to see the Christmas tree?
Yeah.
Can I ask you one question before
Sure.
that, if you don't mind? As someone who's not very good at Endgame, are there any like practical things you easily memorise? I was thinking about this a while ago, like if you could say, okay, I know that a monkey jump is going to be however many points, or you know, a Hane connect is going to be however many points. Is it possible to easily memorise values that are generally the same for those things, and then supply them practically?
Can you learn to speak a language fluently by just studying a textbook without ever speaking with anybody?
Ooh, harsh.
No, it's probably more difficult that way. So, well, it's my opinion, but I would do it in the way that I would first learn to calculate a little bit, and then I would try to apply it.
Right.
Sometimes possibly during a game, sometimes between games.
Yes.
And I would do it until I get it correctly by gut feeling, easily. I think you need to do it first, and then you have to make mistakes, and you need to learn from them. That's the most efficient way.
So there's no like rule of thumb then at all?
No rule of thumb.
Is that an English expression? Like a general rule.
Yeah.
Like you might say like, oh, Hane connect 5 points or whatever. It's like a general rule.
Well, I'm not sure how general you can get, but I think there's a very limited number of endgame moves that occur all the time, right? Like one of them is this simple half pointer here,
Okay.
how I defined it.
Yeah.
And there's a very common 1-point moves and 2-point moves. And there's not going to be more than 100 kinds of them.
Right.
So if you're the memorizing kind of person, you might just see a list of all the moves and see 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 1.5 points.
Right.
And if you didn't get my book yet, it has a list of them in the end. So that's one way to do it. But I would just go and make the mistakes if it was me. Learn from them. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, very good.
Okay. Oh, Christmas tree.
Bit of Finnish culture here, right? Bit of Finnish culture.
Ah, sure. You don't do it here in England?
On go board.
Oh, sure. I think I'll leave the reindeer spot next time, though. I think it's like this, but this is here. If you don't mind, I'll just check the book quickly. Oh, it's the wrong color. Ooh, oh, it's not this. It's here.
So the colour should be green.
Green and red. That'll be fun. Yeah, so this was one of the. Well, I made this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but interesting as an endgame problem. The question is, how many points does white expect in this shape? So to calculate white's expected territory correctly, you either need to know how many points to expect in each of these. These are half a point, and I said this once. Does somebody remember? That's 1 1/4. And then this is even harder to count, right? That's one way to do it. But the easier way would actually be to just add move pairs all the time. If black and white play the exact same value move, then it's fair, right?
Yeah.
So we can place the zones and we can continue thinking from there. And then you can just solve it easily. If you cannot imagine it, I'll give you 1 minute and I will show it. How many points is it?
Is it black to play?
7.
That doesn't matter. In this problem, it literally doesn't matter.
So I think it's 3.
3?
3.
White has 3 points just by playing one move. White should
I mean,
have
in the
one.
very, very final shape, when it's completely played out, how many points white will have?
7.
7?
6.
6?
47.
47? Just here, between the branches.
7.
7? That's quite a few 7s, right? 7 is correct. So let me show. So here we have 4 spaces, here we have 4 spaces, so these two are equal, right? Let's place a black move and a white move. Okay? Then we have 3 spaces and 3 spaces, they're equal, right? So let's just add moves. Okay? 2 spaces and 2 spaces, and 2 spaces and 2 spaces. Right? So sometimes we may have to count a lot in the end game, but sometimes we can just think, oh, these 2 moves are equal, these 2 moves are equal, and we can just analyze the board like that. Because that's also one way in which the game of Go is very interesting, is that you play one move, the opponent plays one move, and finally, at the end of the game, both players have something. It's not like you can get all the biggest territories and kill the opponent and not give the opponent anything, because they get the same number of moves as you, as well, anyway. So when you want to win the game, the point is that you just get half a point more, right? To make it simple. You don't need any more than that. Half a point more, you win the game. Peaceful. And this is that kind of thinking tool that you can use, especially for analyzing the situation. Moves of equal value, think forward. Okay, any more questions? Shall we quit here? So, well, I mentioned it a few times, but if you're interested in more of this, I think I got the book in good shape. So I'm selling the Endgame book over there. There's a soft cover and hard cover, and well, I think it's a good one, so please consider it.
How many points do you think can be lost if you do endgame badly?
At least 30.
At least.
Yes, I said, right? When a top pro plays and 1 or 2 done amateur, 30 points is normal. If you're a Q player, you can lose 100.
So you mentioned earlier about how by playing the last move you get a profit.
Yeah.
But that's not always true, because in this position, before you put any stones on, you said it doesn't.
Yeah, this is one of the exceptions for it, because you have pairs of the moves of same value.
Exactly.
Yes.
So is there a more accurate rule than simply having the last move is worth a profit?
Well, it's not just for the very final move of the game. It's more like you have a number of 2-point moves,
So
and then you have a number of 1 and 1/2 point moves, right?
Yeah. So I believe the way I understand it is you get a profit by playing the last move, which is bigger than the rest of the moves on the board.
Yeah, it's sometimes people say that the last move of a certain temperature, we say 2 point is 1 temperature, and then 1/2 point is a lower temperature.
Right, but in this position, clearly, depending on who plays first,
it doesn't make any difference at all,
It
right?
doesn't change the score, but it does change who got the last move of each value. If white plays
That is true, yeah.
the move to make 3 points,
Yeah,
and black
yeah.
pushes in, then black got the last move of that value, and the rest of the moves are smaller.
Yeah. So in reality, what that means is that because this is not the whole game, right?
Yeah.
There was something else.
Mhm.
So one of the players just played point move somewhere else, and they created a situation that has paired of pairs of
So
even
they
number
had
of
the last.
So they got a profit there by playing the last one.
Okay.
So it's just, I'm not sure if it's mathematically soundproof or anything, but it's a heuristic for analyzing the endgame.
So if the whole rest of the board is fixed, there's dame in this, but if the dame were filled in, if the whole rest of the board is fixed and there was a dame and then there was this formation, play the dame.
Then you don't lose anything. It's correct. I sometimes do that in Go Quest when I play.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because it literally doesn't matter in that case.
There are, in Chinese or AGA rules, there are some situations where
Yeah.
you should play a move differently because it changes the number of dame left.
Yeah, and sometimes it's better to finish a ko instead of playing a half-point move.
Yeah.
Because that prevents the opponent from playing two 1/3 point moves later.
I think it's time to wrap this lecture up. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you.